Hello and good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the next panel on erosion of the rule of law, authoritarianism, and shrinking spaces. A very warm welcome to my guests, Jota from Athens, Veysel from Istanbul, Katja and Darius from Hamburg. I am Wolfgang Kalek from the European Center for Constitutional and Human Rights, ECCHR, a legal human rights organization, which is dealing with a lot of issues we are going to cover in the next 1.5 hours from different perspectives. We are very happy that the Allianz Kulturstiftung invited us to host this panel because obviously rewriting the future does make sense in these times. Unfortunately, lots of our work, and this is definitely a part of our panel discussion right now, is not dedicated to imagining a better, a brighter future, imagining utopia, but putting obstacles out of the way for a brighter, for a better future. And so we're talking a lot about repression. So our panel is a little bit complementary to yesterday's report on artistic freedom, where we heard a lot of examples of repression against artists, against journalists. So one thing is that we're covering that side, but we're also talking about legal interventions. Three of us are lawyers, and we're talking about connecting local and global activities to counter tendencies of shrinking spaces and of erosion of law. Above all, while many others were talking about space, countries, and situations outside of Europe, we talk about Europe. We want to address European responsibility for the state of the world. Obviously, if you would start to talk about European responsibility, we would have to talk about the global responsibility. We would have to challenge not only colonial, but also post-colonial injustice. We would have to face the unjust economic world order, one of the main causes for the big streams of migrations all over the world, which are also part of the panel. But what we want to do is we want to address situations within Europe, because until a couple of years ago, many of the things we're talking about, assassination of journalists, bright, open repression of newspapers, also repression against people who are in solidarity with migration, happened outside of Europe. But now, and that's the new and very bad news, that's the very bad news, now this is happening within Europe. The Council of Europe states, but also within the European Union. But the good news is that it caused and it provoked a lot of resistance. And part of this resistance is represented here by our different panelists, some of whom are working with law. All of us are transnationally collected. We struggle locally, but we're also transnationally located. The idea is to have, let's say, two blocks. In the first, Katja and Veysel will talk about repression against journalists and the dangers for a democratic and open public space. And in the second panel, we're talking about migration, and especially those who are in solidarity with migrants and want to challenge the politics of migration within Europe and are therefore under repression. So it's a pleasure to start with you, Katja. Katja Gloger, as I said, from Hamburg, is a journalist. She worked many years for Der Stern and is now member of the board of Reporter Without Borders. So Katja, how would you describe the situation of the freedom of press, repression against journalists, and the different dangers a democratic open public is facing in Europe right now?
Wolfgang, thank you very much for the introduction. Thank you very much, all the other panelists, that I can be with you on this panel today. As you mentioned, I do work for Reporters, for the German section of Reporters Without Borders, and for more than 25 years, by doing our work, we try to abolish ourselves, to gain a victory for the freedom of the press. Unfortunately, there is still a lot of work to be done, not only for us, but also for us. When it comes to Europe, the focus of our discussion today, we have to say that in many European countries, countries of the European Union, that democracy is eroding from within. One of the first victims of that process of erosion is always the independent press and the right to free speech. And within the European Union, where the basis of the treaty, the basis of this union is an agreement on values like the right to free speech, freedom of the press, and the rule of law, these fundamentals are more and more shaken today in many European countries. Their elected leaders use at the same time a complex and easy to understand strategy. This strategy I would describe as a five-fold strategy to suppress independent voices. So first of all, they need legitimacy to a certain point. So they need elections, they need followers, they need public support to a certain extent, because they do not want to be seen as clear-cut dictators, and they need the vote of the people in order to stay in power. So this is why they uphold a facade also of independent media and of the rule of law. Second, they use their power, legislative and first and foremost, their executive power, to bend the law, to write new laws, and to repress journalists and independent voices in civil society. The third part of the strategy would be that they use money, they use friendship connections, they use commercial interests of businessmen or state-owned structures or holdings in order to buy media, in order to control it. They buy media and concentrate media in big holdings, not for profit reasons, but for clear-cut political purposes. The fourth point I would mention is a delegitimization of independent voices, of journalism, of media. And for this, they use the media and also social media they have under control, or use or weaponize, if you might say so, for propaganda and fake news. They use it to sow hatred and division. The fifth point I would mention is the European Union as an institution. So there they use the veto rights given by the Treaty of the European Union in order to pursue their interests, to block criticism. And they also exploit to a certain extent the pragmatism of the European Commission or the European Council to pursue their own goals. And if you want me to continue, Wolfgang, do you want me to continue? I can give you two, three clear-cut examples of countries in the European Union.
No, just go on, Katja. And also just a very quick remark to the audience. If you want to comment on what Katja is saying, or if you want to ask questions, which we later want to address, you go through YouTube or the Facebook stream or on the Twitter under the hashtag of Rewriting the Future or RWTF. So please, Katja.
All right, so there's two to three really striking examples of that, of the success also, unfortunately, of that strategy within countries of the European Union. The first one would be, and to me also one of the most striking ones, is Hungary. Hungary, which more than 30 years ago was instrumental in tearing down the Iron Curtain, and where at the time a young activist worked in order to tear down that Iron Curtain. His name was Viktor Orban. A country that has become one of the first members of NATO and the European Union, and where Orban's party Fidesz won elections 10, almost 11 years ago, and since then holds power. What we see in Hungary today is a systematic obstruction and intimidation of independent media and independent journalists. What the government and its prime minister pursues is a clear strategy to silence critical press through the manipulation of the media market. This is done by forcible closure of independent media. This is done by government takeover of media, often with the help of business people that are connected to the Orban government. Today in Hungary, we face the concentration of almost all local and regional media within the hands of a holding that is government controlled. So nothing there to speak of independence. Another tactic the government uses, a very effective one, is the exclusion of the few leftover independent media from the advertising market. Either it's from advertisement from the state, or it's advertisement by private companies. So an important source of income does not exist anymore. And as many other examples in other countries show, journalists, medias, publishing houses are under pressure and repression by lawsuits. Sometimes it's over a dozen that people face. So they have to defend themselves against these charges, and this is not only like a sword of Damocles over them, but it also distracts them from their daily work they want to do. So the last examples when it comes to Hungary is the news portal Index Hungary, that was effectively forced to shut down half a year ago. And just recently, maybe other panels also already talked about it, is the only in Budapest broadcasting club radio, independent, small voice, their license was revoked. The reasons were that they either were transmitting too loud, if I understand this correctly, or that they broadcasted less percentage of Hungarian music than foreseen by the law. So this is part of the strategy in Hungary. When it comes to the second big country in the former, so to say, Soviet bloc, Poland, there we see a different strategy. It's the systematic destruction of the independent judiciary, the destruction, so to say, of the rule of law. 5 years ago, when the conservative PIS party gained power, they started to pursue a so-called politics of good change. This is how they call it. And this means getting judges and the judiciary up to the highest court under their control. They do it by law, by laws they pass in their parliament. And they also do it, to give you a second point, by the so-called repolonization of independent Polish media. Because partly Polish media is and was under foreign ownership. Germany plays a crucial role there, and just recently, Polska Press, it's 20 regional newspapers, 100 local newspapers, and many internet portals that were owned by the German Passau Media Group. They were sold to Orlen. Orlen is the Polish oil company running also gas stations. So not a company you would say very, so to say, experienced in the media market, but it's a state-owned company. And the CEO of the company happens to be an old acquaintance, even a friend of the leader of the PIS party. So also through government takeovers, through laws, through lawsuits against journalists in respect to alleged tax evasion, fraud, you name it, the government is getting more and more control over independent voices. And when it comes to the European Union, this will be my last point. The European Union, we face, so to say, a double truth. On the one hand, they are kind of helpless. And on the other hand, they kind of close an eye, they turn a blind eye on the developments within their own member states. So they are helpless because one of the basic principles of the European is an unanimous decision. So even when the famous Article 7 mechanism was started against Hungary and Poland a couple of years ago, because the European Union stated that there was a clear risk in these countries of breaching the fundamental values of the European Union, it turned out to be, in German, you would say, a toothless tiger. Hopefully this is the right expression in English, because any decision needs the votes of all member states. Should it be fines? Should it be even suspension? So the Article 7 makes a little of publicity, but in the very end, it doesn't work. There have been lawsuits.
Katja?
Yeah. Let me mention one last thing when it comes to the European Union, because just recently, the European rule of law mechanism was adopted and started. It should target breach of the rule of law, but through political pressure, especially from Hungary within the last months, it also turned into a more or less toothless tiger, because it tackles corruption way more than it tackles problems with the rule of laws, with the rule of law. So here, the European Union turns also a blind eye on the development within its own member states. This is it so far. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you very much, Katja, and sorry for interrupting you. Actually, it was my fault because I asked you to give an overview, and I realized that there is definitely a lot to say, and especially it's important to indicate that we're not talking only about imprisoned journalists or assassinated journalists, which we even have in Europe, in Malta and in Slovakia, but there are different threats for an open, public, democratic debate, which you pointed to. And unfortunately for us as lawyers, but important also to remember, laws are part of the problem in in many parts of the world, the laws are part of the problem and not part of the solution. Still, we have some tools left. Not all of them are toothless tigers. Let me introduce you to Veysel Ok. Veysel is a lawyer from Istanbul, and actually he happened to come a lot to Germany because his most prominent client here in Germany is Deniz Yücel, the journalist who was imprisoned in Turkey for incredible allegations. And Veysel and others, the public, defended him successfully to that extent that Deniz was released at some point. But Veysel is moreover active in numerous cases and also in capacity building for journalists and lawyers who are defending journalists. So let's move to one specific country, the Turkey, which seems to be one of the most dangerous places for journalists in current days. So Veysel, let us know a little bit about your recent experiences. Probably also a word if Corona is anyhow worsening the situation in Turkey or not.
Thank you very much, Wolfgang, for your introduction. And hello, everyone, from the biggest jail for journalists, biggest jail for lawyers, biggest jail for judges, biggest jail for politician country in the Europe. Yeah, we have a huge problem. If you want to discuss about authoritarianism, it's the first country. It could be Turkey because we have really authoritarian government now. So I can start about our constitution and European Human Rights Court decisions, then maybe about COVID. Now, before coup attempt, of course, we had many judiciary problem, many freedom speech problem. Again, many journalists was in the jail, or we had huge problem. But after coup attempt in 2060, Turkey changed. Turkey became different country. Now, before coup attempt, we need reform. We could make justice system with reform better. But no, reform is not enough. We need revelation because there is a one commission like prosecutor and judges commission, and they are controlling all judiciary system in Turkey. And this commission members, half of this commission members, Erdogan president chooses directly, and the other half one, the Parlamento, the majority choose again Erdogan because Parlamento majority is Erdogan. It does mean the judicial system controlling under the Erdogan. This is so hard for us. If you read Turkish constitution, we have many rights. We have freedom of speech rights, we have protest rights, we have all rights. Even our constitution may be better than some European country. But the problem, the judges don't follow our constitution. This is the biggest problem. And the judge, also political actors like Erdogan or like the other ones, they don't accept European Human Rights Court decisions. We have two important decisions from European Human Rights Court. One is Selahattin Demirtas, who is the chef of the pro-Kurdish party HDP, and other one is Osman Kavala decision. He is the most important civil actor in Turkey. They are in prison since 4 years. And we got so successful decision from the European Court. But Erdogan, the Interior Minister, Justice Minister, Judge didn't accept these decisions, and still they are in the prison. This is one of the biggest problems because we are a member of the European Council, we are part of the European Human Rights Court, and the European Human Rights Protocol is part of the oral law, but still Erdogan government don't care, don't accept the European law. About media, I want to speak a little more. Now, the Turkish Journalists Union gave this number. 95% of the central media under the control of government. If you come open the Turkish television, if you go market and buy Turkish newspaper, is almost all is pro-government media. What happened to other journalists? Other journalists start do their job in the internet, in the YouTube, in the Twitter, in the other platform. And what happened after this? The government changed social media rules this year. And if you want to open news portal on the internet, you should get license. You should give money to government, and you should have no contact with terror organization. And this contact only police give decision. They don't need court decision. If police say you have contact with terror organization, you cannot get license and you cannot open the news portal in the internet. This is the biggest problem. Many journalists, 100,000 journalists, they try to make their job in the independent platform, and or they try to make their job to get fund from European Union and open website, news portal in Turkey, but no, they change rule. And if the police send paper to government, you have contact with terror organization, they don't give you license, and you cannot open also web portal. And they change second biggest problem in Turkey now. We are getting all news from Twitter in Turkey. All people, not of course everyone, but like intellectual, like journalists, like lawyers, active people, proactively getting news from Twitter. Turkish government changed rules. They said if you have 2 million members for the social platform, if you have 2 million members, you should open office in Turkey. If you don't open office in Turkey, we can close your account or in Turkey. YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, they opened office in Ankara, and it does mean they will accept Turkish government director. They will accept Turkish government censorship, because if they don't accept, they cannot do their job in Turkey. Twitter didn't open still. They didn't declare formal information. At April, until April, if they don't open in Turkey office, in Turkish citizen cannot contact Twitter. And the biggest news portal for us, Twitter, and we cannot use Twitter. My opinion, Twitter won't open in Turkey, because they know if they open office in Turkey, they should accept all Turkish government requests, censorship requests. This is the other program. The one I want to tell something more about the Kurdish journalists. Now we have 82 journalists in the prison still. It is our list. It is a Media and Law Association list. We have 82 journalists in prison. They are mostly Kurdish journalists. From European side, European organization, European actors, they care, or they work for only some popular names from Turkey, like Altan case, like Kavala, and before like the Deniz Yücel case. But there are many Kurdish journalists in the prison, and only what they did, only they did their job, they did their work, they declared some human rights issue. For example, last month in the Van, east of Turkey, close to the border of Iran, one soldier helicopter threw out to one civil citizen from the helicopter, and he died. And 3 journalists in Van, they did news about this topic, and they arrested. So my request to European actors, not only or civil organization, also European Union, European Council, they should care more non-famous journalists too. This is one important thing more.
Basil, may I interrupt you, because that would exactly be my question. So what does it mean, care about more or not so prominent journalists? What kind of resistance, what kind of care you imagine in these cases? Because you told us already that the European Court of Human Rights decisions have not been obeyed by the Turkish state.
Yeah.
So what are possibilities of resistance? What is your claim to us from Germany, from Central Europe?
Yeah, for example, they are doing great job for Kavala case, for Yücel case, for Altan case. Amazing advocacy they did. But if for example, my organization advise some name from the Kurdish city journalists, but you should explain everything to them, because when you speak about the Kurdish problem, even the European figures, they are stopping at, they are thinking more. So first, we should say they are journalists to European organists. We should give evidence they are journalists. This is one of the big problem. Second, for example, when we apply for Altan and for Yücel case to European Human Rights Court, many civil organizations became part of this case, third part. I request to them they could be third part for the Kurdish journalist case too. I can understand maybe if they are famous, they can report more easy, they can fight fund more easy, but for the freedom of speech or for the journalism, they should be part of the other cases too. And the other advice from me, before COVID, many European figures coming to Istanbul to follow monitoring the cases, hearings. Same people, they can come the other cases too. They can come the other cities, because Turkey is not only Istanbul, Turkey is not only Ankara. Everywhere has prison, everywhere has hearings, so they can follow monitoring, they can follow the other journalist case too. And many things we can say, by the way.
Thank you very much, Basil. Katja, you want to add something or comment something to what Basil was saying? And maybe you add a word about the work of your organization, Reporters Without Borders, but please not too long, because I know you have a huge record. But just as Basil just talked about what can be done from our side, maybe you want to add something. Katja.
It just shuts off my audio. So Basil actually said it all. I mean, all these cases, they need more attention from the political side. They need more attention from the human rights side. We at Reporters Without Borders, we try our best. So as our own correspondent in Turkey is under constant threat of being imprisoned, and charges against him are standing for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 years now already, 3 years, I think. We tried, to raise awareness by going to Istanbul, by standing in front of the court, by talking to ambassadors, by lobbying within our own country for the rights of Turkish journalists. And I agree, there's always way more that one could do. At least we give it a try, and Turkey is, when it comes to Reporters Without Borders, it's on the first place, to say, of our attention, and also of and on one of the highest places of our daily work. Just let me add a second little point, a positive example. Wolfgang, you mentioned the horrible assassinations of Daphne Galizia and Jan Kuciak and his fiancée in Malta, respectively, in Slovakia, a couple of years ago, almost 3 years ago. In all the tragedy, there might be, a positive moment, because especially when it comes to the Daphne Galizia case, colleagues, journalists from other countries, they took her cause and made it their own cause. So the big Daphne project, being pursued mainly also by journalists from Germany, helped a lot to get at least a little bit closer to the truth. And just recently in court, one of the probable assassins, or one of those responsible for the murder, he admitted his guilt. So, there's little we can do, but there's a lot that we can do at the same time.
Thank you very much, Katja and Basil. And we come back to you, and obviously you can come back to us whenever you want. I would like now to turn to one of the biggest problems in Europe, which is not migration, but which is the management of migration, which is the European border regime. And while we pointed to Turkey, and rightly so, to Poland and Hungary in the first part of our panel, we have now to turn to the responsibility of the big shots in the European Union, to Germany, to France, and all the others, who are the main responsibles for this inhumane border regime. But as we discussed before, also with Jota, Masurido from Athens, who is a very active lawyer in migration cases, maybe it's not the time to point again to the situations on the Greek islands or the Mediterranean, although you might touch on it. But what is not so well known, and I think that goes for both of you, also for Dariusz Begui, that is the repression against those who support migrants against this inhumane border regime. And so, Jota, you're a lawyer in Athens, and you're as well active in migration cases, but also in recent cases against individuals and NGOs who are oppressed by the Greek government when they're active in those cases.
Hello to everybody from Athens. I would like to say that I'm sorry that I'm not there present. And here we face the COVID-19 restrictions. We are in a lockdown since November, but the government is using this time and keeps passing a set of laws irrelevant of the pandemic. And this is connected with our concept of discussion right now. The latest law the government passed was to create special police units for the universities, just to say, at the time that the universities are closed, almost 1 year now. So at the same time, they passed legislation for asylum, for limiting the activities of the NGOs. So all this regime is going, but at the same time, we are locked down in our houses, and we even have electricity cuts the last days, electricity cuts, internet cuts, so it can go worse and worse, the pandemic, unfortunately. So in relation to the situation in Greece, as an external EU member state, a border EU member state, I would like to put a bridge on the previous subject about Turkey, for example, and would like to recall that in Turkey right now, we have all these gross violations of human rights. We have lawyers, judges, journalists in prison being persecuted actually for their activities as professionals. And they are limited, they cannot speak. I know this from lawyers as well. They are afraid to take cases because then they will face problems from the state, but at the same time, the EU as an organization itself and individual member states have a very close cooperation with Turkey. In the field of asylum, this is connected with the EU-Turkey statement that the EU decided in a short-term solution to find a model out of any legal concept that all refugees arriving in Europe can suddenly return to Turkey and stay there. So following this methodology, Greece is currently pushing back illegally from the sea, putting people at risk of their lives in order for not to have arrivals. And if you see the statistics, it's true that there are no longer arrivals in Greece. At the same time, they created the hotspots. This is an EU inspiration. About the pushbacks, we have clear indications that EU agencies are involved, but we are not right now at the moment to prove that. And we have the hotspots, where are places that people are concentrated for a prolonged period of time under deplorable conditions that everybody knows. And at the same time, we have a clear persecution of activists that, in order to expose the crimes committed in this regard, either in the sea, either on the hotspot, they face penal charges. I would like, all the cases are very famous globally, but I would like to point out some recent cases of 2020, the last 6 months. So that involves also German NGOs and German citizens, as it is released by the police. The case I refer to has not, we don't know if there exists a penal file yet. We know everything by press releases and press interviews of the police. It is the first time that the police informs the public in such a detail about the file that they made under extreme security operations, but then we learn it on the news. And we wonder, if it was such an extreme security operation by the police, why you inform the public, specifically when the suspects are not under the control of the police, and that means that they can escape. So according to the press releases of the police, around 5 NGOs and members of them, around 35 persons, these are the number they give. Some are European citizens and some are non-European citizens, are accused for facilitating entry of irregular migrants. This is a form of smuggling, to put it for the public, for participation in criminal organization, for espionage and infringement of state secrets. These are very heavy accusations, and the activities, how they, according to the police, they built this file, is by pure actions of solidarity. That means that these alleged suspects were helping boats how to arrive in Greece, let's say. So as I say, this is at the process. The prosecution of Lesbos did not call somebody yet. And we really don't know what is going on, because these press releases took place in September. And since then, we have very often new press releases by the police in order to inform the public. As a lawyer, I could say that this does not serve the penal procedure at all. This is just for the press, the news, and in order to intimidate also the NGOs and make them being a little bit afraid or leave from Greece in case they are not living in Greece. And this is true because everybody can remember that in 2015, for example, the people, the residents of Lesbos showed great solidarity to refugees coming to the islands, and they were very helpful. But in 2020, for example, we had a very increased level of racial attacks, even attacks on persons helping refugees or workers of NGOs or even journalists covering this kind of cases, even on a clear neo-Nazistic rhetoric. So this is how this general discourse affects the local population and in general the society, creating a hostile atmosphere. Another example of penalization and prosecution is a case that asylum seekers themselves are the victims of this kind of practices. And we have to say that this is even worse because the NGOs have the means to support themselves. They can have the best lawyers, they can make public campaigns, they can be in another country, and in order to be brought before the Greek justice, maybe a European arrest warrant procedures have to take place, and they can get the protection of their states as well and their courts, because it can be proven that this is clear political persecution. But what about asylum seekers when they are the victims of such practices? I would like to give 3 very recent examples. One, it is a case where 2 Turkish asylum seekers already living in Greece were present in Lesbos Island. When they were there, they received a call by 2 persons that they were just arriving from Turkey as refugees themselves. And they wanted to bring them to the police because they know the practices that people are arrested when they reach the shore of Lesbos, and then they are put by force in life rafts and they are driven back to the sea, and they risk their lives in this procedure. So the 2 refugees already living in Greece met the 2 newly arrived persons in the street in Lesbos. And there they were arrested, and the police, without any proof, because there is no proof that these people supported or helped or had in any way any connection with their transfer to Greece, charged them with smuggling, and they are now in pre-trial detention. The other 2 people that arrived were kept in the beginning in the police, and then they were set free. The tragedy in this story is that the newly arrived refugees, the new refugees, let's say here, happen to be colleagues of me. They are lawyers persecuted in Turkey. And the persons that met them happen to know them because one of them was also a client of the lawyer that arrived. So we speak about pure human activity to support. This is the main concept of solidarity action that a human can make, and this we reach to penalize it. I repeat, there is no evidence of any connection with their travel at the sea. They just met on the land. This is a tragedy for me, and in the whole Europe, we lawyers are trying to organize and see how we can support this case. Another horrible case is...
Jota, may I interrupt you? Because we've come to more of a discussion. So I would like to connect to what you just said, Jota. So you mentioned an example of the European Lawyers Association, which supported the 3 lawyers you just mentioned. Could you give us some other example what European public can do in order to support you in your fight against shrinking spaces in Greece, and especially against also the repression against the migrants in Greece?
Okay, my experience with acting on a European level is beyond cases that work that I cooperate very closely with lawyers, mainly from Germany, mainly from other countries as well. But I would like to say that the pan-European legal actions are very important And I think my colleague Veysel can verify that. For example, for persecuted lawyers in Turkey. We make campaigns, we go and we make trial observations. The same is happening in Greece for some cases, that international observers come, participate in the trial, and then write reports about the process of the trial, what are the issues, or there are media campaigns, or there are legal texts explaining why this penalization does not violates international standards. For example, I can speak about the European Democratic Lawyers, where I participate. This is a pan-European confederation consisting of domestic national lawyers associations. So we had made campaigns for Catalan lawyers in Spain, for lawyers in Madrid, in Spain, for Turkish lawyers that are facing continuous trials. There is an endless, ongoing, Kafkaesque trial history in Turkey against lawyers. And I have to say that the same lawyers, our colleagues, are facing for the same accusation trials again and again. There is no ne bis in idem. This is a principle that we say that for these activities you will be tried once. No, this does not exist. So they face continuous, ongoing cases. For the hotspots, for example, for the asylum violations that we see, there is a very strong interest in Greece. But I have to say that I am skeptical when international actors come in a domestic regime that they really don't know and starting legal processes alone without being connected with local lawyers. This is a wrong strategy. This is very good to do other kind of activities, but when we speak about legal actions, everything always should be guided and explained by lawyers that are working in the country in question. For example, everything that we do in Turkey is after consultation, proposal, and agreement by colleagues in Turkey that really know and can filter what kind of action can be useful for them and what kind of action is not useful for them. And of course, by no way we can be able to know the details of the Turkish legal system. So it is always useful that Turkish lawyers explain and say that here is the field that you can act. The same stands for Greece, for example. Or I would say for Italy or in Spain, that they face a lot of international interest. So these things have to be clear, because in some cases, either persons put themselves in trouble without knowing, either if they are connected in legal activities, there is a danger that this thing will be turned against the initial aim, that is, of course, with the best initiatives, but it does not go always like that. I think that the legal community in Europe has to go more strong. We have a problem as lawyers that we are always very busy with our cases. And unfortunately, this kind of lawyers we need the busy lawyers with their cases, because they are the ones that really know what exactly is happening in their states and what are the exact violations. So we have to find a way to build closer structures and involve more and more of our colleagues. And in this regard, I have to say that the initiatives of the organization of Wolfgang, the European Center of Constitutional and Human Rights, is very helpful, because they really do events almost every year that bring lawyers together. And this is a way, for example, that people can make their independent contacts and continue. So we belong to this European legal family, let's say, and we have to present it. Veysel wants to say something, I see. Please, Veysel.
Unmute, Veysel, please.
I agree you for the make strategy at local place, they should meet local actors. This is so important. For example, last year, many European journalist organization came Turkey and they met Justice Minister and Vice President of Justice Minister. And because they thought Justice Minister, like we will make justice reform packet and we want to get organization idea, what we can do. They didn't invite us. They didn't invite local actors. Only Germans, English, French actors came, and they took picture. And when the Justice Minister came to Brussels, he did propaganda. He said we met civil organization from Europe and we did just the justice reform. We got their idea. If so, it is so important. If they ask me, I could say don't meet him, because but they go meet him. They took picture, and this picture going to Brussels, going to Strasbourg, we get civil organization idea. Of course, it's not useful for us. So I want to add this.
Yeah, thank you very much, Basil, and of course, thank you very much, Jota, because at the same moment you pointed to the necessity of transnational European solidarity and pointed to ways how to stay with you. But on the other hand, you also criticized some NGO or some lawyers' practices we all know. And Jota, I can assure you, we wait all for the moment when we not only can invite the legal family whose members you are again to Berlin, but meet also other people. I'm not. I can only insist that it's so important that we try to meet in person, because it's another kind of discussion we have. For us, it's I can't not. I have to say this. It's very difficult to talk into the screen without knowing who's watching us. And if you like it or don't like it, if you're bored or thrilled by what we're saying, you have a certain possibility to participate. It's a very weak possibility through a chat. And I just mentioned it. You can go through internet to YouTube, to Facebook, and to Twitter, and comment or ask questions. And Maria is a chat moderator. She will transmit the questions to us, and we'll see if there is any time for more discussion later on. So let's come now to Dariusz Bigui from Hamburg, a trained Dariusz, what's up? A trained Begi, a trained sailor and captain who used to ship in Hamburg and now is shipping from time to time with the Juventa, one of the most well-known ship of sea rescuers of migrants, and not only one of the most well-known, but only one who's very much surveyed by not only Italian authorities, but also under investigation. And I think Dariusz, you will come back to it. When we gave away the Paul Grüninger Award to the Juventa and including Dariusz, Paul Grüninger was a police officer in Switzerland who helped to let Jews to Switzerland without really registering him. When we gave away this prize 2 years ago, Dariusz and the others from the crew made a very nice move. They said it's not only about us, it's about dozens of members of different groups all over Europe who are basically in the same situation, oppressed by their authorities, because they are helping and supporting refugees. So Dariusz, give us a little bit of an insight in your own practice, the Juventa practice. Let us know a little bit about the repression you're facing, and also how we can support you, how can we stand in solidarity, and maybe some remarks on the overall repression against those who stand in solidarity with migrants. I know this is a lot for 10 minutes, but I know you're a trained speaker as well.
Yeah, that's a lot for 10 minutes, especially because I would like to talk about other points much more, but I try. So, okay, I'm Darius, one of the 10 people, Juventa 10. We are a group, we were 10 of about 300 people who were volunteers on the Juventa. It was a fisher ship, and it was rebuilt from an organization called Jugend Rettet as a rescue ship and sent to the Central Med. For 1 year, it was on mission, on 14 missions it was. In this year, the different crews could save about 40,000 people lives. And then the ship was seized. That was the beginning of a repression against us, and we didn't know in the beginning how big it was, because it was just the ship is seized. After a short time, we had access to the files, and we learned that we had a listening device on the ship for 3 months, that they listen every stupid talk we had at night shifts, or even everything was talked on the ship on the bridge is recorded by Italian authorities. And also that is not nice feeling when you think about what you talked at night, when you think you are alone with someone you know very well, and now you know it's recorded. And also not only the Greek prosecutors or police people like to talk to newspapers. Also the Italian, often we read things in the Italian newspapers before we get a letter from the prosecutor or something like this. At the end, our story could be told for hours, of course, but we don't know much. We are under investigation. We wait that the investigations are closed. We hope it will be this year, but we hope that the last year also and the year before also. And so, yeah, we hope the investigation will be closed, and then there will be also a pre-trial. If it comes to a trial, our lawyers think it will take about 2 or 5 years or something like this, because in Italy the trials always are really long. The highest charge we could face is 20 years, but of course I hope I don't go to jail for 20 years. Nobody likes that. Yeah, but it's a long time till then. And my problem now is, you said at the beginning, we invited different other groups because there are many people in different workspaces who are facing repressions. It's people who give shelter to refugees, who give meals to them, who save them at sea, to help them over border, to come over a border. But now I would do it not in the same way like we did it on the Gröninger Prize, because also this is all a European thing, and we are Europeans, and it's not really dangerous for me, of course. I need lots of time, we need money, it costs lots of nerves, this trial. And maybe I go to prison, but when I go to prison, I know I will have lots of solidarity. I will get love letters and posters, and I don't know, some cakes maybe. And I know 10 years later, I will come back to my normal life, or 5 years later. There are lots of migrants and refugees who are in different prisons in countries, in Greece, in Italy, in Spain, and they are there for a really long time. In Greece, okay, to fade out, it's typical for every boat which is rescued in the Central Med, don't care, Greek, Spain, Italy, one of the persons on the boat goes to the court because he's driving, or she is driving the ship, mainly it's men. He's driving the ship, the boat. He's not a smuggler, he's not a trafficker, he's just the last person who goes on the boat, or he pays 500 euro less. And they go to trial, and for example, in Greek, most of them get charges about 70 years. And even if they get only 2 years or 5 years, after that they get a deportation. So they have the problems, and nobody is talking about them. Nobody is talking about the refugees who are criminalized. And always the people talk about the Europeans who are criminalized, which is a good topic for me, because I can be on the internet now and talk about the refugees. And also about laws. We talked about laws a lot in this panel. And for me, it's really shocking in the last 12 months how obviously European states break their own laws. It's like yeah, the pushbacks, we had it shortly. We had the pushbacks, I think, last week. In a Greek camp, came the police to 13 people and said, you have to come with us for a COVID test. And they go with them, of course, and they put them in like prison in a container. They beat them up there, and after that, they put them in a life raft outside in the sea and put them there and left them to die at the sea. And that is against many laws, I think. And they break the laws every day in these times, and we can see it there. It's not hidden. They do it obviously. They do it in front of cameras. We have video footages from Greek Coast Guard boats who approach rubber boats and cut the tubes, or Maltese Coast Guard who goes to boats and provides them with fuel, with gasoline, and say, here are the coordinates from Sicily, go to that place, even if they are already in Maltese waters. So many points where they break their and international laws, and that should be much more on every table and in every newspaper, in my mind. And now I'm a little bit enraged. I'm not prepared for this talk, I have to say. So now I'm a little bit enraged. Yeah, and they break the laws, but they also they dare to say, hey, maybe you work together with smugglers. There was a report from Italian newspaper. They found out that one of the biggest smugglers from Libya had a meeting with Italian Coast Guard 2 years ago. So they meet with the smugglers. They work together with the so-called Libyan Coast Guard. They provide them with ships, with technical informations, with trainings, and the Libyan Coast Guards are just the strongest militia who was at place. They have they are not only, they don't have, oh yeah, now I'm too much enraged maybe.
No, there is, I mean, there is no reason not to be enraged.
Yeah, for sure.
While you're talking about these things, and so I don't want at all, to stop you.
It's not easy.
Shouting. Yeah, no, I know it's not easy, but maybe I put some questions to you. One is, don't you think that I think you took it a little bit too easy when you put in prison, when you're criminalized, because I think your approach, especially the Juventa 10 approach, is also a political approach. So it's not only about you rescuing some migrants you happened to meet on boats in the Mediterranean. It's a political critique of the border regime. And when you are put in prison, you serve as an example. And so it's about preventing others to join you in this struggle. So it's not only about you as a person, but it's also you about you're representing us. And so it's an attack against us. That's the one thing. The second thing is, I would like to know a little bit from you if there is any chance for those who participate in this panel to assist you, the Juventa 10, in this struggle against criminalization. And the other thing is, you still go on with your missions. So while we're talking, some of your friends are again on the sea. So how does this work in these difficult times?
Okay, I make it the other way around. The last question, yeah, one of the Juventa 10 or 1.5 are out on sea now, and we didn't do that for a long time because when it figured out that we had 10 people under investigation, our 2 Italian lawyers said, please don't go out on mission, don't meet the Italian Coast Guard. The possibility of pre-detention trial and the pre-trial detention rises really high if you do that, and we didn't do that. I regret that a lot. And after 2 years or something like this, we had a talk as a group, and we decided if people of the group wants to go out, it's their own risk. And me also, I would immediately, if there would be more boats going out and they are not all at chains, and most of the boats are not allowed to sail out. Also a law thing, come back to the circle closed. close here because most of the NGO ships are not allowed to sail out because of laws, and it's like it could be a comedy if it's not a tragedy, because for example there was a reason one of the ships were not allowed to sail out because they have too many life vests on board, and that is they forbid them to sail out because of too many life vests. That is, I could drink 2 shots immediately when I hear that. And yeah, so we sail out because it's more important to go out there than it's at the end. It's a mindfuck for us, for ourselves, of course, because we can do other jobs, but we want to go out because we cannot standing it anymore, holding it up here, staying here and do nothing is too much for us. We know the situation out there, and yeah, for me, I cannot sit anymore here and just watch the people dying in the Central Med again all the time, because yeah, that is. And come back to your first question. Nearly every NGO I know was founded with a goal to change policies, not with a goal to do sea rescue for the next years. I think they really was so, they thought it's so easy. I Sea-Watch at the beginning, they thought really, I think, I don't know them in the beginning, but they thought when we go out there and show that there are people drowning, they will change the politics. That's why they had a really small ship and not a big rescue ship like now, because they had a really small ship because they just want to go out there and show that there are people in need, that there are people in distress. And they thought that would be enough, and then something will change. And yeah, history showed they were completely wrong, because Europe doesn't care if people drown. And also, this is a point I always have come back to this. In 2016-17, we worked well together with the government or with the MRCC, so the Maritime Rescue Coordination Center, so the group which coordinates rescues, and we worked very well with them together. And in this time, it looked a little bit like they don't save more people because they don't have ships or they don't know how. Of course, that was a lie also, because they just don't care if the people die. They just don't care if the people drown every day or not. But in these days, in the last 2 months, in the last 12 months, it was so often that different NGOs informed the MRCC Rome or the MRCC Malta about a boat in distress and the exact position, and they didn't went out to assist. They just ignored the calls. They sometimes even don't take up the phone anymore when they realize the number. And also that should be, or is for sure, against the law, that an emergency call doesn't pick up the phone, or even pick up the phone and doesn't start a rescue when they know about an exact position of a boat and how many people are in distress. Yeah, we're going in circles. They break their own laws and they blame us to break laws which we never did. And how you can support us, it's difficult to say, because till now we don't have to. We even don't know. Maybe they close investigations and they drop it. Also, that is possible. I don't think so, but it is possible. So it's difficult to say how you can support us. But to take the first point, I think Katja was her name. She said it just in the beginning, that Reporters Without Borders just want to abolish themselves. At the end, we do the same. We want to abolish ourselves in a good system, in a utopia. There is no civil sea rescue needed, of course, because there are no refugees, no migrants are forced to risk their life on this not seaworthy boats. And if they have to flee, they had legal and safe routes. And we are fighting for legal and safe routes. And then we are not needed anymore. Somebody want to add something? Or it's old? It's old. So if you want to help us, and if you want to help I think that is one of the points why Europeans doesn't want to talk so much about it. Because if you want to help us, or if you want to change the world in the way that the people don't have to leave their homes anymore, then you have to change our lives. We have to change our lives. And it's easy to say, the big companies, they take the oil from somewhere, or the big companies companies take the fishes from the shores from North Africa. But it's not only the big companies. It's every piece of chocolate you buy is so cheap because somebody somewhere else have some child to work on farms, and every clothes you wear are so cheap because in big factories like in Asia, the people work for nothing, and every handy cell phone you buy, every laptop you buy is possible in this cheapness because somebody somewhere else are people working under slave conditions, and we have to change our world. We have to rewrite the future in the way that we change European lifestyle.
Thank you very much, Darius, and also thank you for introducing, a different perspective to this panel. Before we had the dry lawyers, including myself and the journalist, and now we heard you. Please feel free, Katja, Jota, and Basil, to comment on what Darius was saying. I would like to put one question in the round, and that is, you pointed several times to the law. I feel provoked because as much we know about the ambivalences of law, and I was the one who said that law is sometimes part of the problem, I think it's still necessary to defend it when it comes to human rights norms, and to denounce those who break the laws, and to defend those as you and as the refugees who are criminalized. So I think there is no way not to be also use legal tools to lead a struggle which is mainly a political struggle. I mean, the change of the border regime, for example, is obviously a political struggle, but still we must also use, and we are able to use, legal terms. But I don't know, that was my take. Please feel free, Katja, Jota, and Basil, to comment on what Darius was saying, or whatever comes up to your mind.
I just wanted to salute Darius and his people and his crew for their incredible work. And what touched me most was you saying, being enraged, as you said, that doing nothing is just too much for you. And with all the fatigue we face in our, rich Western European countries, I think this is a call, not a legal, but a moral call for all of us to overcome all these fatigues we face. We face a migration fatigue. I mean, there is no big headlines in the newspapers anymore. Even if a refugee camp, a migrant camp like Moria burns down to the ground, it lasts 1 day or 2 days. There is this incredible pandemic fatigue of people right now. Everybody sitting under lockdown, more or less. And my hope still is that these experiences lead to at least slow change, that we can't continue our lives the way we did for so many decades. I think that's just a point for all of us.
Basil?
Thank you very much. Especially at this COVID time, really life is hard for everyone. In Turkey, the situation became more and more worse. Information, clear COVID information. How many cases we have, we cannot get, because the minister don't tell us anything, and there is no independent media to search and find this. It is hard to work like as a human rights lawyer in Turkey, or also maybe in Greece, also maybe somewhere else. We should make more solidarity, we should meet more, and we should get our idea each other more to get solutions, some problems fast. So again, thank you very much for this event. I share my idea and I listen to you. Thank you very much.
Jada?
In general, about all the issues that have been discussed by all the participants here, I think that we still need, of course, to use the law. Okay, I speak as a lawyer now, but it's really necessary by pressing governments and through the governments, European institutions or directly European institutions to bring human rights issues, either if it is whistleblowers or journalists or solidarity activities that are being persecuted or refugees and migrants or whatever else, in total, the human rights sphere to be brought as an issue of respect and protection. In this way, because we have to think innovative, in an innovative way also, I have to accept that in this regard, the most cases in courts are lost because the courts unfortunately take political decisions. So what we can do to think other ways and method, I was thinking recently, for example, and I would like to share my thought with you. There is a new half fantastic, half, not whole, directive of the European Union. It's about the protection of persons who report breaches of union law. This is the so-called whistleblowers directive. It's Directive 1937 of 2019. Currently, the member states of the European Union have to transpose the minimum standards laid down by this directive in their domestic rules of law by December 2021. So that means that all over around Europe, the states are in the process of verifying methods how to introduce this directive. What I mean by half fantastic, actually this directive regulates the protection of reporting persons. This is the name it gives to whistleblowers, or persons connected with them, such as relatives or colleagues, or legal entities that the reporting persons own, work, or are connected with. The bad thing is that this directive covers only breaches of specific fields of EU law. Some are very general, some are very limited when we speak about human rights issues. I cannot analyze it now because we are not in a legal panel and we don't have a lot of time. But I think that we should find ways to connect this kind of activities with the protection system established under this directive, because it means that these protection standards have been recognized by the European community. And I have to say that it took 10 years to decide and pass and vote this directive. So I think that for all these issues, freedom of speech, free journalism, their son's case and cases related to that, corruption cases. But I would go more, even, for example, for someone who uncovers breaches of law in the EU borders by state or supranational agents like Frontex. Why these people should not be protected, for example, and on the other hand, we have them being persecuted, because this is the system of protection established by the directive. You are protected from further persecution. So I think that we should try to think what we can still use from our European legal regime. It is a common regime, and with the Council of Europe concept, we have it exactly common with our Turkish colleagues as well. So I think that we should try to develop new tools, also pressing the governments on the way now they will try to transpose this directive, because maybe some governments are persuaded to build a more protective regime. As I said before, the directive only issues limited minimum standards. So every state is free to add layers of protection or broaden the concept. So I think this is the way we have to go and speak publicly out right now. So if the states say that they criminalize for smuggling solidarity actions, we have to say, no, these are protected persons because they are there to report or save the people that is the result of a breach of an activity by a state or EU actor. So this should be our understanding of the reality, and this is something that we should help arguments in a political and legal field. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jota, for making this very important point. Because in the same sense as Darius, we're living obviously in one of the most privileged regions in the world. And I think many other parts would be happy to have a legal system like we have, as incomplete as it is. But obviously we need to defend it, and we need to enforce the judgments of the European Court, especially in the Turkey cases, but also in some migration cases. And we need to plead for better norms. And in this sense, Darius, I just want to throw something in, because there is nothing to say against your accusation of the European companies exploiting people in other parts of the world. But in the recent years, there were also some attempts to hold these companies accountable. And in this sense, the German Lieferkettengesetz, which is now a draft law, is something new. So there is also a new sense of the bad sides of globalization, and German and European public takes at least partly notice of what's going on. So it's not all useless what we're doing. I know that you didn't say it, but
I never said
no,
that.
but I need to reiterate that. So we have a couple of minutes left. If anyone of you wants to do a final remark, this is now the point. Jota made already a claim which is difficult to top, but maybe Katja or Basil, or Darius, you're able to top it. No. Okay.
I'm for sure not able to top it, but I would ask the audience for one pleasure. Nee, not one, was heißt denn Gefallen?
Favor.
For one favor. Yeah, I would ask the audience for one favor, because you said at the beginning, this is not the right place to talk about the situation in the Greek camps. I think it's always the time to talk about the situation in the Greek camps, and we cannot do much. I would like to go there and hug everybody, give them a tea and take them home to me, or to Germany, or wherever they want, but we cannot do much, but we can support them. And not only with money, of course. If people have some money, spare money, they can spend it to groups at the spot. So not to groups here, NGOs in Germany, because there were lots of self-organized refugee groups. Also, maybe in Izmir is a good group in Turkey, but on Lesbos are many groups. And another point, what everybody can do is show your solidarity in the net. Just post something, and there are some people living in Karatepe and other camps who have social media accounts, and give them attention and spread their words, and show them that they are not alone. It means a lot to them.
Yeah, thank you very much, Darius. And I think that is the right concluding word. And I would like to thank all of you, first of all, for your participation in this panel, but second, and moreover, for your important and courageous work. Some of you, as Basil, really on the forefront. Also Darius, always in danger to be criminalized for your work. So thank you also for that. But also thank you for pointing out the importance of European solidarity. And I think we heard a number of examples how European public, how European networks can challenge these injustice we have been talking about. And I think in this sense, we also would like to thank the organizers of the whole conference, because it's a European initiative where also cities, different cities from Europe should be connected. And the idea is the idea of open cities, cities who give a safe haven to migrants and people in exile, and especially delivering this message from Berlin as a place which, well, a couple of dozens of years ago forced people into exile all over the world. And now at least some people in Berlin try to remember and try to establish Berlin as a safe haven for people who have to exile. So in this sense, thank you all, and yeah, have a nice afternoon, and hope to see you very soon. All of you whom I see right now, but also those whom I don't see in person. So thank you and goodbye.
Thank you.